Holmes was born. Then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
Beware, your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late. There was an unexpected wrinkle in the technical specifications of how the show is done. You never know what's going to happen on the internet. That's part of what's exciting about it. And speaking of the internet, we have a guy on the show whose career was started on the internet. Davey Wreden? Is that how I say it?
Right.
Oh, hi, Davey.
Hello, John. How are you doing today?
I'm not that bad. You are exciting.
Oh, you stop.
It's true. You are not only making games that are unlike games that I used to be able to play, but you're getting them made in a way that was impossible as of just 5 years ago. The game you're most well known for, the Stanley Parable, started off as a Half-Life 2 mod. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Not that dissimilar from last week's guest, Luis Hernandez, who started making his games with Worldcraft, which was a Half-Life 1 custom map making thing. So you're part of this generation of indie video game developers who don't have a lot of money to start up, who are making polygon-based games, big, interesting games. Pretty awesome.
I'm bizarrely fortunate to be able to do that. It really back when Dear Esther and Radiator were Radiator still is a Half-Life mod, but back in the days when I realized that I could actually use that, and then they weren't that hard, and that it was actually you can do actually pretty cool things with very simple tools. That was a big revelation for me, and just realizing that that's an option.
Right. Do people ever accuse you of cheating? Saying that you should.
I accuse myself every day. I still don't I still don't take people seriously when they say wow, so you're a video game maker. I'm like, you don't understand what I do.
But you certainly it's a real life video game. It's using the tools that video games grant both designers and players in a really interesting way. But how much can we talk about the Stanley Parable without spoiling it?
If we're going to talk about it at all, I think we just have to go for it, right? I don't. I think it would be cool if you feel like there's a pertinent line of discussion that actually goes into spoiler territory. Then I think we should just open the floodgates.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's interesting that you were inspired to make it at all, because it's not the kind of game that has immediate appeal. You've done some really funny and touching blogs on your own Galaxy. What's the name of your
Galactic Cafe?
Galactic Cafe. That's right.
We're a company now. We're an LLC. I have a document that has my name on it. I'm very special.
Awesome. How many people are in the LLC?
Just one. Just me. It's. There's other people that are a part of it, but legally, just me.
You're a guy.
I could shut the shit down today if I wanted. No one would be able to do anything about it.
Do you have an office?
You're looking at it. It's not an office as much as it is a residential that I rent out with a few other guys to have a workspace. So on the other side of that wall is Robin Arnott, who is the sound designer on Antichamber.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. He's we've had Alexander Bruce on the show before, and he talked about Mr. Arnott for a long time. I think 20 minutes of just gushing with affection for that guy's work.
I get to, and I live with him too, so we see each other 18 hours of the day.
Have you collaborated? Did he do anything on Stanley Parable?
He is doing work on the new Stanley Parable. So the remake, cool. He's doing a bunch of the sounds.
Awesome. That's something to look forward to. So what inspired you to make the Stanley Parable in the beginning?
So many things just sort of converging very conveniently on one another, as I tend to find most things like this are. It was having just thought about games and narrative a whole bunch, having played a whole bunch of games that really inspired me in weird ways. I'm trying to remember what I had already played at the time. Like I think a lot of it was Metal Gear Solid, and the ways that Metal Gear Solid messed with sort of your expectations and conventions about fourth wall breaking and everything. And then when I played Dear Esther and Radiator, those both helped me realize that I could do something really interesting and that it didn't take a lot of manpower to pull it off. And like, as for where that was just already in place. I was like, oh, cool, that's an option. I have that available to me. I could do basically anything. The idea itself was really just came from an interest in narrators, like always enjoying fun ways that like unreliable narrators are used in storytelling. I've always thought that was really weird and interesting, and I didn't understand it. And that was, I think, the first thing is that when I was thinking of something that would be very simple to make because I was not very good at actually making video games. And so I thought, okay, what if there was a disembodied voice that was talking to you, and what if you were just walking through some empty hallways, and the voice said when Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left. And I didn't understand that, for one thing. Like, I just didn't even know. It didn't make sense. It was like, I couldn't resolve it in my head. I tried, but it was an utter contradiction, right? And I tried to resolve it, like, normally, narratively, but it didn't make any sense. So I was like, perfect. Now I know that this game is not going to make sense. You know, I know that I'm going to have to deal with contradiction and not having an answer to those things. And then it was just like that sounded simple. Like I can just put a narrator in some empty hallways and run with it. And it ended up being a lot more work than I initially thought it would be. But it's good. It's good that I perceived it at the beginning as being very simple, because otherwise I would not have set out. I would not have set out on that journey in the first place, I think.
Yeah. The fact that it came together and you had it sounds like an almost instant evocation of emotion. Like, whoa, what did I just discover about something I can make? I don't understand this about what I can do. I have to go figure that out. If it weren't for that kind of burst of inspiration and eureka with your own brain. Wasn't that fun when you have eureka with your own brain?
Yeah, it's amazing. You don't... I find that it takes a certain level of like long-term creative effort to maintain a healthy relationship with that thing, because when you start like pressuring it, you know, and when you start being like, hey, I'm on a deadline here, I need a great new idea, that can be very like not healthy. But then when you just let it happen, and when you go, you know what, I don't even know if anything's going to come up, maybe it does or maybe it doesn't, and you just have kind of like a space, basically. You're like, hey, if you want to come in and show me something really awesome that I should be doing, wonderful. And if not, you got to be okay with that too, right? And in this case, it just happened that, I mean, everything with Stanley Parable was that way. Everything with Stanley Parable was, there's no way I could have predicted it. There's no way I could have known where it was going. There's no way I could have outwardly done something to like change or alter those events. I was just presented with a series of things that led to where I am now. And every single day I wake up and I go, I'm the luckiest guy on the planet that those things just like happened to line up in the bizarre way that they did. You know?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's to me, life is a big game of Plinko. I don't know if you're familiar with Plinko from The Price is Right.
You got the yeah. Right.
Yeah, and then every once in a while your chip just falls in, but it's got to bounce off so many pegs
right.
on the way down.
Right.
So congratulations on Plinko and the Stanley Parable.
Thank you.
Not everyone can, and it's not just luck, though. You are the kind of person who was willing to open up your brain and take risks with what may be in your brain that you don't even know about. You're welcoming it. And you put the effort into actually putting it out there for other people to enjoy. A lot of people just, scribble these things down on paper, read it, and then throw it away. But you went forward with it. I'm sure you do.
It runs the whole range of experience.
Right, but you were willing to put it out there. Did you feel a sense of risk at all in putting so much of yourself inside yourself? You're still figuring out and ideas that you didn't fully necessarily understand yourself as you were making them. giving those to people like that.
I feel a lot more risk now that I know that people are actually listening. You know? Like, at the time when I released the original, I didn't think anyone would play it. I was just like, here, have this, whatever. Just take it. I had spent, it was a very arduous development process, and I formed a kind of detachment from the work over that period of time, to where by the time I didn't show it to anyone. I didn't play test it on a single person before I completed it, basically. And I took it to a friend after finishing it, and I was like, okay, so I made this thing. I hadn't even told him I was working on a game. I called him. I was like, do you want to come play my game? He was like, oh, you're making a game. I was like, yeah, I finished it. And so I warned him before playing it. I sat him down. I was like, look, so this game is very dialogue heavy. I wrote it 2 years ago. That was a different me back then. I was a younger guy. You can tell that it's immature now. You know, I'm not that person anymore. So just take it. You know, don't judge me. Basically, don't come back. Don't come back. Placing some sort of value judgment on me as a result of having played this, because it's really not very good. So in that sense, I actually was kind of detached from it as in terms of being a personal expression. You know, by that point, I didn't think of it like that anymore. And then he came back and after playing it, went, "It's you. It's you. It's you right now." And I was like, "Really?" In a way, I was kind of disappointed because I was like, "Oh, I kind of hoped that I had changed more since then. That it would be unrecognizable." But the cool part about that is that even now, and that was now a year and a half ago. So I wrote the game almost 4 years ago, right? Which is crazy. I'm 24 now, so I wrote it when I was 20, and it is really the only major piece of writing or anything that is largely out there of mine, and it's me 4 years ago, right? And that freaks me out all the time. People are judging or coming to some sort of conclusion about me based on something I did 4 years ago. But the bizarre thing is that all the time when people do come to me and talk to me about it, somehow they're immediately already on my level, where I am now. And I can have a conversation with them now, with me today, even though me from 4 years ago was talking to them. I'm fascinated by that. I don't know how that happened. I did not have that much faith in 20-year-old me to pull that off. If you just talk to me now and I didn't have that reference point, I'd be like, I don't even know that guy, right? 20-year-old me, he was not, You're
not friends with him, yeah.
We'd get along. We'd have lunch. We'd get some drinks or something. But the more people come back from playing this game and immediately are on this level that I resonate with today, it speaks to something mystical about this thing that not just my game, but the act of creation and of creative expression that I don't understand. I don't understand how I knew things back then that I've only consciously come to recognize now. That I was not really aware of back then, and yet somehow put it into words. I don't understand how that works. I don't know if anyone does. I don't know if anyone... I'm sure writers in their 60s, look back and go, I didn't know anything back then, and yet you look at that person's work as a total expression of them.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... Carl Jung thought there was a collective unconscious that people are willing to try to tap into it can get a hold of and put it into paintings and writings and now video games. That could be it. Michael McDonald, singer of Taking It to the Streets and What a Fool Believes. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Are you familiar with Michael McDonald?
I could fake my way through this one, maybe. But
he's just a guy who's he came from somewhere back in long ago. You know him? He's in the... You're dancing. He was in the 40-Year-Old Virgin a lot.
Okay.
He's got a crispy silver beard. He's kind of a poor man's Kenny Rogers.
Right.
He thinks the stuff he's doing now is mind-blowing. And the stuff he's doing when he was a kid, not that good. But nobody likes his new stuff.
Yeah.
His 70s stuff. So our ability to assess ourselves and what we've done and how good it is and how not good it may be, it sucks. We have no idea.
It's terrifying. I'm terrified by that thought. I don't, like, that thought scares me. Like, I don't know anything, you know?
Yeah,
I don't know anything.
Which speaks to the Stanley Parable in a lot of ways. I think that's a big part of the game for me, is going into it knowing what the programmer of the game, which I saw you as kind of the one who put Stanley in the office, and you as the narrator. So you're going into this experience knowing that the programmer is speaking to you directly and thinks of you as someone who just pushes buttons on a keyboard. What is this person going to do to you? You can't know what to expect from him in that relationship you're going to have with him. And I think I almost made sense. I'm trying to figure out ways to talk about the actual game instead of Michael McDonald. But mistake.
It's your show, right? Like,
unfortunately,
these people didn't pay anything to be listening to this right now, right? Like,
that's a good point.
If it's the Michael McDonald show from now on, own that, all right?
That's a good way of looking at it, just getting in touch with my subconscious and owning it.
Exactly. Yeah, what do you really want to talk about here, John? I know you've been talking about the Stanley Parable stuff, but what's really, just let it...
Yeah, let it come out. It's like therapy. So, what do you think about if you had to make the Stanley Parable for money from the start? Like how Hideo Kojima had to make Metal Gear. He had to be like, okay, I got to make sure Konami doesn't go out of business. Got to make the best game ever, and then just spends like 2 minutes in Metal Gear Solid showing Snake in an elevator going up slowly, smoking a cigarette. He risked all that money on a project that, on the surface, wouldn't necessarily appeal to a large market, but he tapped into something, and he's definitely plugged into a huge fan base at this point. So, if you were in that position, do you think you would have made the Stanley Parable in a different way? If you had up front, there was like $100,000 you had to
I don't know, man. Pressure of thinking about what of someone else's expectations is a dangerous game to play. You know, over and over, I just can't know how I respond to those situations until I'm in them, and a lot of the times I fuck them up. You know, like a lot of the times I make a choice about that, and I look back and I'm like, that was totally the wrong thing to do. You know, and that's why it's so weird that with Stanley Parable I hit on a lot of those, like the good choices in a very big way, in a very like if there was any realm that I was going to make those good choices on, I'm glad it was this thing. Because if I had thought that someone had given me like money to make this game, I don't know. Maybe I would have done exactly what I did. But you know, like now, like since the game has come out, and I know that there is like recognition of it and expectations about future things that I do, and like potentially money writing on those things, I've had to rein myself in a lot. You know. Many times I've had to figure out whether what I was doing was because I really wanted to do it, or because I thought that there was some expectation about something that I should be doing. There's been a lot of humbling moments when I realized that I was not doing it always for the right reason. And even when I am doing it for the right reason, you forget so easily. You'll get that burst of inspiration, like you said, and then you'll be like, I believe in this. I don't care. Give me money, whatever. I don't care what people think. Yes, this is going to be fantastic. And then you start working on that thing, and you work on it for 3 months. And 3 months later, you're going, what was I thinking? Give the money back. Give the money. I won't take your money because this is gonna suck.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen Adaptation? It's a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure anyone who's played Stanley imagines that Charlie Kaufman is a favorite of mine.
yeah, that would if they've heard of Charlie Kaufman, which sadly a lot of people never have. Those movies are old now, like almost 10 years old, being John Malkovich.
Oh, the classics.
Yeah, I like to think so too. Do you think that we're getting to a time where a Charlie Kaufman-like creator has a place in video games? Because if you look at the history of film, it was all just, there was a mass market side and then an exploitation side. There was, what big studios would do, and then there was what small, we don't have any money, so we're just going to throw like a bunch of half-naked women and ultra-violent stuff into the movie to get someone to watch it. And then slowly over time, things opened up so you could have real variety of auteurs in film. Woody Allen, Charlie Kaufman, Tarantino, all that stuff. And I feel like video games are getting to a point where hopefully people are starting to pay attention who makes them, like yourself, and that there's a wider variety of potential for things that can be made by those people. Do you feel like we're getting to a point, though, where the Stanley Parable could be like, Game of the Year 2013, blockbuster hit?
Dude, I don't even... This is... Okay, like, just opening that sack of beans is like this whole relationship that I've had with not forming expectations about how people are going to respond to the new Stanley Parable that I'm very aware of, and aware of when it messes with my head, because I start spending all this energy thinking about, are people going to think that this is Game of the Year? Or whatever. To give you like the very sort of artsy answer on this one, I think that I would rather that games like that are made from a place of belief in them, regardless of whether or not there's a place for them. Like even right now, there is probably more space for games like this than there have ever been. Right? If there is in the history of games, if there's any time for me to be making, or for anyone to be making a game like this, certainly if I didn't pick right frickin' now, it would be in the top 2 times maybe in the history of games ever. To be experimenting so wildly with stuff like this. But when Kojima made Metal Gear Solid, he had no business making that. There was no precedent that said now is the time to do this, right? And I would rather, I'm glad that someone said it is none of my business whether or not the time is right now, And because, you never know. When I was originally started working on Stanley in 2009, Braid had just come out the year before, and that was super inspiring to me. And the indie thing was just getting rolling, and at the time I was like, dude, this ship is gonna sail, right? I need to get on. I need to do, because someone else is gonna beat me to this. Someone else is gonna take this spotlight. I need to do this. Not that I need to be some big thing or whatever, but someone else is gonna make the Stanley Parable if I don't make it right now. And I thought if I didn't make it within 6 months, that I'd be dead, right? 2 years later, the game comes out, and it's actually probably a better thing that it came out then, or when it did come out. Or I really can't say it, but so much circumstance around that made it possible for Stanley Parable to, one big thing. There are many, many factors, but one big thing is on the first week that the game was out, Notch tweeted about it and said he really liked it, and that was if you look at our page views, it's I
bet he has the tendency to do that for people. Right. Yeah, Notch. Yeah. We should do that for my show. Rats. I'm sorry, you were saying.
But I'm just saying you can't know, right? And if I had based what I was doing around, do I think now is the time versus now, rather than letting the work decide what it was going to be and when it was going to come out. I'm not saying Stanley Parable would have failed, but what I did do is completely misinterpret the correct time for that game to come out, completely misinterpret whether or not it was a genuine expression of myself as that time, and it still became very successful, and it was still a great expression of myself. So that is all to say that the more energy I invest into trying to carve out, like, this is the correct space inside which for these games to come out, the more it has just always led me to a place that's not healthy, not fun. I'm not really enjoying what I'm doing. I'm second-guessing myself all the time. I'm worrying about, will people like it now? Should I wait? Should I launch? Should I just get it out the door? Hurry, before any more time goes by. The overall net emotional thing is really bad.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up stuff that makes you feel bad, but it sure is interesting.
It's good. It's good. Like, I want to go through that. I want to experience that and say, how does that help me learn how to deal with this in a healthy way? Like, give me the negative experiences, right? Like, let it be bad, let it be painful, and let me grow as a result of that, and be a better person, and be a better creator, and be a better, contribution to the community. Like, let those things inform a community that is really expressive and open and not worrying about what other people will think and not self-doubting and anxious. And, I couldn't have known that now if I hadn't been through those things.
Are you sure you're 24? Bitch. I'm like 36 and I'm still grasping at being able to articulate and understand all this stuff, you bastard. Sure, I'm jealous of you and your magic. That's
what happens when, like, something like this, like a big event like Stanley Parable happening when you're 22, like, it really puts you in the fire. You have to deal with it, right? Because otherwise, you just go crazy.
But a lot of people would just go crazy or not deal with it or just come out the other end saying, I want to avoid negative experiences forever. Anything that's at all troubling, I've had enough of that. I'm just going to play it safe and make iPhone Pac-Man clones for the rest of my life and have a good time with that. But you grasped all that and are putting it into your work, and you're also motivated by it. I'm glad that you were afraid that you were going to miss the boat, because if you thought to yourself, oh, I can take my time with this, it may have never happened. You might have got distracted by something else, or any number of things could have occurred. So the way you've been able to harness that is, I'm grateful for it, personally. Oh, yeah, anytime. Do you get tempted to want to change all of video games? Do you ever feel to yourself, oh, now that I'm gaining prestige and power over people, and you have fans now who are just going to like
over people.
That's right.
That always sucked.
A lot of game developers.
Half-Life 2 modding is how I'll do it.
But it's to me one of the things that I've noticed to be true of almost every game developer and most artists in general is they want to be able to affect people and create something for them where they're in control of how people feel on some level, or at least influence them on some level. So you are the whole video game world, the industry may be something you can try to develop in what direction you want it to go in based on what games you make. If you think to yourself, I'm going to make a game, I hope it's influential, I hope other people make games like this, I hope it becomes popular and then changes what video games are, that's not right in your reach, but it's getting closer all the time. And it could be arguably in your reach right now, depending on who you ask. So do those thoughts ever cross your mind? Do you ever get tempted to try to shape the industry in a direction you think would be better?
Yeah, all the time. It's a balance, you know? Mm-hmm. I recognize that without those thoughts, I would be significantly less likely to actually do something like that. Mm-hmm. Certainly there have been many people who affected that kind of impact on the world without directly thinking what I'm doing is going to change the world. Right, absolutely, many people have, but I recognize that on some level, that attitude at least says, like, from what I can assess of other people who have done stuff like that, that there was there was kind of a confidence in oneself to be able to do that. There is a bit of an ego, you know. There is a bit of a, I think that what I'm doing could change the world. For some people, it's what I'm doing will change the world. And some of those people go on to actually change the world.
Sure.
I'm not staking anything on my changing the world. I'm working very, very hard to make sure that none of my satisfaction with myself comes from reaching that end goal. If I do, it's a great bonus. Now, all the time, I slip into thinking I need to do that, otherwise I'll be a failure. That does come up. But like something that you mentioned before, or something that you wrote about briefly, and I didn't know if you wanted to bring it up, was about submitting Stanley to the IGF.
Sure.
So a little like side story here is that I submitted the new Stanley Parable to the IGF this year, and we didn't get nominated, though we got honorable mentioned in 3 different categories, including Game of the Year, which is a tremendous, incredible honor. But at the time, my reality about it was that we will definitely get in to the finalists, right? And when it didn't happen, it's not that I wasn't really incredibly honored by the honorable mentions we did get, but I had a reality about I need blank to happen, whatever. I need my game to get into the finalists of the IGF, and that not happening had a really profound humbling effect on me. You know, like, whoa, you're not the center of the world, right? You're not owed anything. No one, like, yeah, great, you made it. You made a successful thing. You're gonna earn every step of this along the way. And I still think that what I'm making is a great game, and I think that what I submitted was a great game, and I think that what I'm doing is a great game. But I had a kind of reality that I'm like owed recognition in a sense, and that's what the ego can lead to. And everyone knows this. Everyone knows that, you know. Everyone knows the archetype of the egotistical whatever, right? Everyone knows that you're always slightly setting yourself up when you expect that this good thing will definitely happen to me.
Sure.
So it's a balance between those things. It's like, I probably won't affect any great change if I don't believe it on some level, but if I believe it too much, then if and when it doesn't happen, I'll be super upset at myself. So can it be that I do think that what I'm doing has the potential to change, I don't know, games or whatever, and if it doesn't, I'll still totally be cool and happy, and I'll still be working on something that I really liked, and I'll be around people that I really like. I'm working really hard now to put all of those bricks in place, and make that like the focus of my. Let's do this. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
That's my real creation.
You did it. You did that.
Drop the mic. Walk away.
It's something that I try to share with people as much as I can, but it fails a lot. That I feel like people would be happier, and I do want to make people happy, if they were able to have 2 different perspectives or even more at once, and balance those between which ones are going to work for them in the moment. You can look at things from a big perspective, like I'm just a speck in the universe, nothing I really do matters, so I can just do whatever I want, and it doesn't have any real effect. Or you can hone in real tight and be like, every single second of me working on this game and every texture that I create could be the difference between total victory and total success. Going in between those two can lead to a much more fruitful, happy life than getting stuck in just one. But people just ignore me when I say that. I think it's because I sound so pretentious. And the glasses now. Got these glasses.
Could you be less pretentious? I'd appreciate it here.
I'll try my best. I'm trying.
I'm in your circle. I get the pretentious thing, which is the pretentious thing is the hardest comment to respond to because there's no response to it. Do you find that balance coming up in your work, like your writing, like thinking about how people will respond to like a piece of journalism that you post or whatever?
Thanks for asking. I try not to. I'm tempted to talk about myself because I want to share with people that are sharing with me, but it's a little sucky to invite someone on a show and then talk about yourself, so I try not to. But yeah, everything you said I've related with the hunt.
Whose show is it? Whose show is it?
It's your show, in my mind. I'm just here to let them see you. But yeah, everything you've said I've related with 100%. Balancing between thinking this is going to be the biggest thing ever and I'm going to change the way people think about video games because I'm going to enlighten people to all these insights I've discovered, and playing Aereo Porter, the new game by the creator of Seaman about running the baggage claim system in an airport. I'll be like, oh my god, epiphanies about Aereo Porter abound. I must tell the world. And then realize, why am I writing about this? Am I writing about me just showing off that I like Aereo Porter, or am I really doing something for other people? And you have to balance between all of those perspectives all the time, or else you'll end up not really being yourself 100%. And that's my goal, is to just show everybody everything I've got somehow. And show everybody what people like you have too. So I do this show. Yeah. Hopefully that'll.
You get to do that. You get to be an access for people, for other, for viewers or whoever, to get to experience that through me and all the other people on the show. So that's a major contribution.
I hope so. Yeah, I want it to be. Video game industry and video game culture frustrates me sometimes because a show like this, which I personally think could be great for people and shows people that I think are great, that are making stuff like you are, will get, X amount of views, whereas a Let's Play of a guy like telling fart and rape jokes while playing, I don't know, Final Fight Streetwise will get 100,000 views, because what people are hungry for a lot of the time is just the simulation of having friendship or having humor or having a fun time and not actually digging into stuff. And I get all snarky and jerky, and people would say pretentious, saying, don't watch Let's Plays, watch my dumb show. But it's because I believe in this darn show. Darn it. And I don't know if that happens to you, where you're seeing people play video games that you feel like are maybe kind of junk food material for their mind, and ignoring stuff that might actually have something to it for them. Do you ever go through that? I mean, it's dangerous territory.
Oh, yeah.
You mention a game that people like and call it junk food, they're going to be storming the castle, ready to kill you like Frankenstein's monster for insulting the game. But I'm sorry.
I'm sure you get the same thing, because you have a level of kind of like public awareness to where it's mind-boggling. I'm sure most people are aware that it exists, but when you're actually in a spotlight where people are projecting their judgment onto you, and it's like, oh my God, how do you justify saying stuff like this to someone you've never met, someone you don't know, right? Like, you have no idea, you've never met me, and I mean, like this other person or someone who is commenting on something that I do and saying like Stanley Parable is a pretentious piece of dog shit, and like the guy who made this game sounds like a real asshole, right? And there are people who just have no problem saying that and like looking and like going out searching like for evidence, like. And conversely, people go through and find a lot of stuff about you that is positive, and the whole range of it is people forming some sort of judgment about you or your work, and until you're in that position, it almost doesn't seem weird. It's like, well, yeah, you're out there, right? You can, anyone can say whatever they want about it. But then when there's actually a real person responding to all of that stuff. It makes you go, oh my God! I did not realize how like dangerous that can be, and how other people will pick up on it. When one of those YouTube videos that is I don't want to get judgy about it, but that to me conveys a more hateful or judgmental or exclusionary attitude. And when all of these people jump on board, you know, when there's like 100,000 views and all of these people are like, yeah, fuck this or that, I wanted you to go, do you see the impact that you're having, you know? Like, do you see that you're not doing this in a bubble? Like, other people are believing this stuff because you say it, and not just you specifically, but because there's reference points all over the internet. You know, you can search for whatever cause that you want to, you know, go up in arms about. There will be support for that. There will be some way that you can, you know, someone who's perpetuating that and like encouraging you to also perpetuate, you know, an angry mindset or a dismissive, you know, like you should not be making X or whatever. Like you will always have someone who enables that like anti-creation mindset. That has been really, really hard for me to deal with. I don't have an answer for it, and I'm pretty sure the answer is not force it to go away. You know?
Sure.
I don't think that I don't know what the answer is. I really want to know, and I think that through creation and through making something that says that does promote connectivity and awareness and critical thinking, you know, that I can at least start to inspire some people. Maybe not that, you know, maybe there are some people who are so deeply entrenched in a negative mentality that I'll never reach them. But at least there are people that I can reach who might not have thought about that otherwise. And in some small way, you know, make that difference, I guess. I really don't have that. I really don't have this figured out. It's one of these. It's one of these. I want to know what to do about this, but I don't yet fully understand.
Well, I hope you make a video game about it. Personally, that would be awesome. It's something that so many people relate with. Even the most angry, mean-spirited people on the internet that I've met, many of them turn out to be wonderful people once you crack their shell of defensiveness and need to be in control by being rageful. Even if you talk to them, they say, "Why is everyone so mean on the internet?"
Yeah.
Just like completely unaware of how they've contributed to it. And for all I know, they think I'm being mean on the internet too, and maybe I am. To make a game about that, I think people now is a good time for it, or maybe 2 years from now would be good too. But anytime soon, because it's going to resonate with people, and it's going to click into something that they've gone through. But there's so much stuff I wanted to ask. I want to make sure I don't forget, so I'm going to spit it out now to some kind of a stream. First, actually, we'll just start with one. How is the new Stanley Parable shaping up compared to the original? I don't want you to give too much away, of course, but can people expect a relatively different experience, or would you say it's more of a remastered, or both?
I would say that there's kind of a major... The Stanley Parable has like twists and spoilers on a number of levels. There's like the big top-down structural level on the kind of like conceit of the game. And if you've played the original, you're not gonna be like surprised really by that, right? We're trying to strike the right balance. We talk about this all the time, you know. Like there was a point when we had much more direct references to the original game in it, like when we actually like kind of made it as a commentary on the original game, and we shied away from that because we're trying to find a way to comment on the original game without making players without excluding certain players, you know, and like requiring a level of knowledge. So what we've been doing, the way that we've navigated that is the best way to describe it is by coming back to it over and over. So, like at first, our policy, when we first sat down to remake the game, and again, we thought it would take a very short period of time, and it's become much longer. We first said that anything that's working, we're not going to touch, right? We're not going to change it. So like there's one chunk of the game, and we were like, everything about that from the original game, we really liked it. We'll make it a visual upgrade, but other than that, we'll leave it the same. And then like time went by, and I started to say, what if? Not let's change it, but what if? So we just started brainstorming some new ideas that would capture the same or similar spirit of that, but that would surprise someone who was already familiar with that or with the original interpretation of that idea. And we worked with it, and I rewrote it and rewrote it and rewrote it, and then there was a point where William, who is my co-designer, who is the guy who came on, he was the first guy to come on board, and we're like co-collaborators on this. And I sent it to him, and he was like, perfect, right? And I knew then that that we were saying something new through that section, and that we still had an opportunity to surprise someone. And probably not as much as if you'd never played it, but even for some people who have played the original game and then played the new one, who I've shown the new one to, and something was changed, and they went, "Whoa! I was so surprised because I was sure that this thing was going to happen, and it ended up being this other thing." Right? So we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. In that sense, it's not a perfect system. It's really not. I lose sleep over this every now and then, knowing that there's just some, like, you cannot please everyone. Some people are going to say, "Why did you change that from the original? It was perfect." Other people are going to say, I already knew how that was going to go, so it didn't have the same impact on me. So you're going to get every range of response, and it's been an art of navigating those two different things. But because we continue to come back to it over and over, these major chunks, we come back to it after 6 months and we say, is this still great? Do we still love this now? We haven't looked at it for 6 months. Do we still love it now? And if we do, we say, awesome, we'll continue. And if not, we go, how can we change it and make it even better? 6 months go by again, we look at that thing again, we say, how can we make it even better? And like, we're growing over that period. We're becoming, as people, right? So we begin to see different things in the work as time goes by. And that's really the best way that I can describe the changes that have happened in the game. In as much as we try to, grow as people, and then to continue to relate that to our game and see, is something new trying to be said through the game now that we hadn't seen before? And if there is, then we do that. So the spirit is all the same. The core intention of the game, I think, is really one change, but the core intention is really there. But I'm hoping to still treat people who already got the full experience from the original game. I still want to have a conversation with you and still continue to add some new fuel to that conversation. It's not as much, maybe, as you got in the original one, but there is still more to be said, and we've always felt like there is still something to be said, and as long as we feel that way, we're going to continue to add on to it where it really wants to say something.
Right. Man, it's video games are a medium I feel like you can do that in. It's not a sequel, because it's not just continuing a story, but it's a reworking of the same tools, it sounds like, in order to give even more ideas. But how do you know when you're done? That's the thing I would be struggling with if I were you, because you can continue to wait 6 months, retool, wait 6 months, retool until you can't type or see anymore.
Yeah. The curve starts to do something like this, right? In terms of marginal additional substance that you're getting out of it. And you have to have kind of like a threshold and say, when it dips below this, when we're getting this amount of new stuff every 6 months or whatever that we look back at it, then we know it's time to just polish it and ship. And that's where we are right now. Like, I would say that 98% of the game, I'm locked in, and I'm like, I realize that if I come back to this in 6 months, I'll probably see something new in it, but I know that emotionally, just mentally, and where kind of the space that I'm in my life in general, I'm ready to move on. I've been with this long enough that I'm falling into a lot of patterns. I don't want to continue going to the point where it becomes predictable. You know, I can feel predictability setting in a little bit, and that's a great place to say, okay, great, this is what we want to do, this is everything we believe in, let's just go make it. And really the process right now is just the making of it, just the actual construction of those ideas and continuing to believe in them enough to follow through.
I think it's people often feel guilty when they get sick of something or someone, but there's no guilt there. That's just your psyche's way of telling you it's time to move on, and you can't do the same thing forever. So if you gotta break up with your boyfriend, girls, don't feel bad about it, and don't just ignore him either. Send the email saying, hey buddy, things went good, I got a lot out of this, time to move on. It's actually, I got that from Jammer Lammy too. I don't know if you're familiar with that video game.
From the rabbit.
Close. Lamb. It's a guitar playing lamb.
Really?
It's very. It's the best game. It's the best video game.
Very, very much the best game. Yes. Yeah.
It's actually pretty deep. It's about how no matter what you're doing, if you apply the thinking that works best for you to whatever it is, you will succeed. It's about a guitar playing lamb who only is comfortable playing guitar. She's shy in every other walk of life, but if she thinks of whatever she's doing as playing a guitar, she succeeds. Her guitar is in her mind, she says, Davey.
Oh, that's the real message of the Stanley Parable too.
Really?
The real guitar is in your mind. That's what I want players to come away from the Stanley Parable is with that new revelation.
That your guitar is in your mind.
I love that. I love that there's a game that could be about a guitar-playing lamb, and still you could come away from it with that message. Like, I love when I love when games do that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's other mediums I don't see. Other mediums don't necessarily leave as much room for the player to insert their own thoughts and ideas into it. I think they're much more open than most films or books that are kind of locked in as exactly what it is. So of course you can make a really abstract film or painting and leave a lot of open space for people. Do you think that's why the Stanley Parable took off the way that it did? More so than I would. Radiator, I haven't actually even heard of. I feel like a dummy on that.
By Robert Yang.
I'm sorry, say again?
By Robert Yang. It was a Half-Life 2 mod. It was very inspirational in the Stanley Parable.
Yeah. But Stanley Parable has, from what I can tell anyway, resonated with people much more so than a lot of the games that preceded it that might have been in a similar style. Our own Jim Sterling said, Dear Esther sucks, makes me hate, quotes, art games, unquotes. Stanley Parable, awesome. Totally changed my mind about him. That can be, Stanley Parable's where it's at, he says. And he's a picky son of a gun.
Yeah.
He gave Final Fantasy 13 a 4.5, and yet he loves your game. So what do you think it is? As I'm getting to know you, you're not going to come out and say you're confident in an answer, but I'm sure you've thought about it. What do you think it is about the Stanley Parable that resonated with people more than other games?
I think one big thing, and that actually because I did read that article by Jim Sterling, and I think that one thing that he pointed out that makes a huge difference is the humor. The game's genuine attempt to be not comedic, but that you could I like that all the time I get some responses from people who say this game scared the shit out of me. Other people who say I laughed the entire time. Right? I like that there's an option for that. I think that a major part of it is the narrator, is the quality of his voice and the way that he is just the perfect man for that. I could not have picked in any conceivable universe picked a better person. And he makes it accessible, I think, because many of the ideas at play in the game are very tricky and weird and difficult, or can be difficult, if you're so inclined to engage with them on that level. The narrator makes them very much more accessible, and the humor makes it feel not so serious. I think there's a level of the game definitely disarms you, I think, in a way, with those kind of affable qualities that make it maybe more accessible to when you eventually do get to the weirder, trickier stuff.
So it gently kind of lets you enter this more. It's atypical by today's standards, anyway. It's not what most people think video games are. Video games, when you just say that word on a conscious or subconscious level, people immediately think like I shot a guy, or I jumped over a thing, or I leveled up or something. These are all the kind of intrinsic associations we have, little to none of which are in Stanley Parable, and yet people still accepted it. You think people are just wanting to feel good about the video games they play and feel like it's a reflection of who they are in a positive way, to like play a game that's...
I hope so. Dude, I don't control that, and I can just make my thing and put it out there. If that is why, you read me when you said I would be vague about my answer. I have no idea why the Stanley Parable became successful. I really, truly don't. Anything that I say, I'll begin to doubt that answer eventually, But if it is what you say, and if there is really an expressive interest from the gaming community in ideas that don't fit the norm, and in conversation about what this medium could be, and in creating a more communicative, positive environment for game development and discussion, if it is that, and if I'm contributing to that in any way, that's like the biggest blessing that I could possibly ask for. I don't know. I can't set out with that goal. Not really. That has never like been the outward intention. It has to come from something I know I'm going to enjoy and enjoy doing, and if I do my job right, then hopefully it ends up at that point. Like I sort of imagine that like Genova Chen at that game company, has an idea that what they're doing is specifically the intention is to connect people. And I could be totally wrong about that, but I don't feel that way specifically, because I want to make sure that I will have the energy to do it, to follow through on it by actually enjoying what I'm doing well enough. But if that is it, dude, that's the best freaking thing on the planet.
It's exciting, isn't it? To think that you could be, to connect people to a medium that has a huge stigma around it. Video games still do. To make people feel good about playing video games, and to also make them feel like they played a video game that truly was good, that wasn't just a guilty pleasure or a time waster. Those are the words that when people use those to refer to video games, it makes me...
Real quick. I've been playing specifically like the games that I've been playing lately, because I have many games I could be playing. The games that I've been playing lately specifically are the ones that I find difficult, not like in a chat, not like difficulty, but challenging to me perceptually. That I would normally kind of like in disgust be like, no, I can't. The great example is Richard Hoffmeyer's Cart Life, which has gotten all sorts of recognition. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Okay. Yeah, it is a simulation of the lower middle working class. It is like down to an individual person's needs, the people in their life who have certain demands from them. You have to pay rent. You have to get food and everything, and then on top of all of that, you have to go out and manage a business, like a cart, a stand on the side of a road, get all of your supplies, set all of your prices on every good, prepare all of your goods, then sit there in real time and individually hand sell each one of those things in order to make back money. Like that game, I couldn't play it the first time that I tried to, and eventually I picked it back up again in order to actually give it a shot. And by engaging with a thing that I was kind of terrified of that whole idea of. I've worked in food service, and it was some of the worst experiences of my life. And by engaging with that, by having to do something that was so difficult, it was incredibly rewarding, right? And not rewarding because I was given like a power up or whatever, but rewarding because I felt better as a person, right? So anyways, those are the kinds of games that I've actually been trying to play lately, and the ones that I feel when I feel challenged, like as a person. I know that sounds really cheap. That sounds really hokey. Like,
no, not at all. I don't think. Again, talking about me and what I think, but look at you. I usually don't look down at the. The main struggle as an adult, and a lot of the reason I know a lot of adults don't play video games, they're like, it didn't do anything. It was time. I'm dying. I'm old. I've got wrinkles now. My hair fell out. I'm constantly aware of the fact that I'm going to die. So what am I going to do with this precious time I have on the planet? Am I going to play, some multiplayer Call of Duty with some strangers and just, kind of toss that time away in kind of a pornographic, instinctually gratifying, but in terms of any sort of real hope for meaning in that, you've just kind of tossed the time away. Is that what you're going to do, or are you going to try to do something that actually kind of can potentially feed your brain or your soul or do something for you? People shy away from video games, a lot of adults I know, because they're like, it doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't make me smarter, better, faster, stronger. But you're playing video games that sound like could be advancing your character on some level. And you're only freaking 24. You don't even have any reason to worry about dying yet. You look like a spring chicken.
I've got every reason to worry about dying.
That's what I'll do. But, and I've been ignoring all of our questions hard.
Right.
I've been so invested in the conversation, I feel like a dink. Sorry, question people. Do you want to do some questions, Davey?
Let's take some questions.
Sirman asks, and thank you for joining us almost every week, Sirman. You're a wonderful man. What path did most people take the first time in Stanley Parable? Are you aware? Is there any way you can make a stance on that?
People ask me this all the time. I mean, like, my first answer is I honestly don't care. I've never, like, people have always asked, you should put, like, some statistics tracking in there to find out. I'm like, dude, that's not the point of it for me. I have no interest. Yeah, I mean, it's meant to, the game is kind of meant to highlight the artificialness of those choices, and I would rather not fuel that fire anymore. I when I first played it with people, I felt like it seemed like a lot more people followed the narrator, and kind of went on through to most of his story. But then a lot of people would talk to me about it and be like, oh, I totally disobeyed the narrator. But maybe they were only bringing that up because they were proud of it. The people who follow him don't say anything for, I don't know. I don't have nearly enough, like, data on that. Even the amount of people that I've had, I really don't pay attention to that. So it comes, like, somewhere kind of in the middle. It's not statistically, like, far enough to one side or the other, I think, to draw any meaningful conclusions from it. Yeah,
I would have guessed people would just choose right, because so many video games you walk left to right. It's just like, oh, right. But, who knows? Jaws77 asks, is there anywhere to donate towards Stanley Parable HD? Some more, I guess.
Yeah?
Yeah, there was a Kickstarter for it. Was there not? Did I remember that wrong?
I don't think so.
Oh, good. I'm wrong.
Someone else ran a Stanley Parable Kickstarter in my name, took my money.
Did they really?
No, that would be funny if they did. I'm gonna kickstart Avatar 2.
So, is there any way for you to get pre-money for
I don't know, like, maybe I should put up like a donation thing. You can, I don't know, send money to my PayPal, I guess. It's my email address, dwreden@gmail.com. If you're so inclined, I don't turn it away. And anyone who does donate, thank you very much. I suppose. I have a lot of theoretical money for when the game comes out. It's real theoretical money because I almost certainly will be. It's not theoretical money, but at the moment I have no real money. So.
Well, I'll send you some money right after the show. Xanadu asks, do you think it's a shame that more games have not latched onto the interactive narrator mechanic, much like Bastion or in your game, or Portal is one of the more popular ones. Spooky Squid games, they Bleed Pixels. They have a really good narrator-focused game, Cthulhian horror game. It's pretty fun. Right. But yeah, do you think that the narrator design choice is underutilized?
I'm always hesitant to put that kind of categorization on it because I don't. Stanley Parable is not really about a narrator, you know. It's about, like, at its core, it's about a bunch of other stuff. And if it wasn't about, if those things weren't there, the narrator wouldn't mean anything, you know. Certainly the narrator helps, but to have, you know, an access to some destination, and if you're not going anywhere with it, then why are you headed in that direction in the first place? Certainly you can be exploring something, but if the narrator was like the core, like the raison d'etre of your game, that would, I don't see any mechanic justifying itself in that way. You know,
like in any game mechanic, it doesn't justify itself unless it's helping you get somewhere specifically.
I mean, this is a tricky definition, so it's like I'm trying to work out the words in my head. I'm not presuming that I'm saying it exactly right.
You'll do fine. Don't worry about it.
But I would like if the form of interaction or of immediate engagement that the game uses is speaking to a deeper quality of the game that the developer wants to convey to you. You know, I mean, this is such a classic example, but I'll go back to it because it's so significant for me. Braid is one of my favorite games, and Braid is not really a game about puzzles and time reversal. To me, it's a game about finding truth, and to me, it's a game about exploring something in your head so deeply in an effort to understand it so thoroughly and concretely that you are somehow taken outside of yourself and somehow able to understand the world around you. I know that's so lofty and like and artsy and whatever. I know that many people are like, oh, it's a puzzle game, right? But the point being, I would rather that a set of mechanics be used to try to find something that goes deeper than just that mechanic. That's my really lofty, long bullshit way of saying that I don't think it's about the narrator. I think it's about an intention to do something with the narrator that is unique, to use the narrator or whatever as a tool in order to achieve some other thing that you think that people will be really surprised by and engaged with. And if the narrator is really good and if the narration is, you know, effective and whatever, then perfect, that helps you get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something in general. I think people get really focused on mechanics because so many of them are new. I mean, video games have only been around for 40 years or so they're really focused on the surface level mechanics without looking always deeper as to what their purpose really is, which is to convey these ideas. And I hope people play your game and say, oh, I could use a narrator in order to convey my ideas. It would be great for it to see it be influential in that way.
And hopefully used to a different end than the standing room. You know, like I don't want if anyone is inspired to use a narrator from Stanley Parable, I hope it's not to say something that's the same as what we said with Stanley Parable.
Right, absolutely. You know, some people have said to me, I don't really need Mario Brothers, because I got Braid. Same thing. I'm like, whoa! To them, it's just about the jumping.
Like there's a dude who runs along and does this, and like, hey, that's my game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm growing old. I've only got so much time. I'm not going to play the same game twice.
They've really said that they're not interested in new Mario Brothers games because they'll just play Braid for their Mario fix. Very interesting. It's such an interesting world. I sure do like it. Yeah, it's not that bad. And people, I'm going to just preach for just a moment. I'm going to give myself 1 minute.
Say it.
Don't feel bad about yourself for liking that you liked something. There's this thing on the internet now. Like, if you stick up for people that you think are marginalized or discriminated against, people often say, oh, just another white knight. You feel really good about yourself for being nice to people, huh? You're just doing it for your own self-esteem. What's wrong with liking that you're not a dick? I think that's pretty great. And if you like a video game that you're like, whoa, I like about myself that I liked something, that was pretty smart, made me feel things and think things, and didn't just, take up my time. Don't feel bad about yourself for liking that about yourself, you turkey. All right, sorry, rant over.
I agree. Okay? If we had pews here, I'd be standing up and...
I appreciate it. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I might as well be as direct as I can about.
But your choir is way bigger than me, and I believe you, but it's important that we share that now with other people, like that we go and we continue to say to anyone, and it reinforces it too, It's like, even if I already believe that, just hearing it from someone else gives me another reference point. It's like, all right, awesome, you really. I'm cementing it more and more. It's a gradient, It's not just like on or off. I'm getting better at that all the time. And so I always want another reference point to remember the importance of sticking up for yourself in that way when you do believe that you are doing something good.
Wow. Not only did you compliment me for saying we should like the fact that we like video games we think are actually good, then you liked that I liked it. That's the best. And I like that you like that I liked it. We're liking hard right now.
John, what I'm trying to say is the guitar was all in your head.
And I've never believed it more than I believe it now. Steve Oziak asks, what do you think about the alternative endings, such as the elevator glitch and killing Stanley on the ladder?
I love them. I love them. Because I love them because someone asked that question. I love it because in another game, like Assassin's Creed or whatever, someone would be like, "Do you like that your game glitched?" No one would ask that because you'd be like, "No, it's a glitch. Obviously, they didn't like it." But Stanley Parable has a kind of conversation around it and around the game's own admission that it is broken, that anyone would even want to have that conversation in the first place. The fact that people have posted YouTube videos like secret alternate thing, and they're not saying it's a bug, they're saying it's a part of the game, right? Or they're contributing to it as though it's a part of the game. And then it just becomes more conversation about games. It becomes more of a we talk more about how we relate to all of these little things that games are doing, and that's perfect. I mean, I want, and there's going to be so many things about the game, even though they're not bugs or glitches or anything, that are just things I hadn't thought about, right? Just like parts of the game that someone has an interpretation of it or whatever. And I want to not know what people are going to think about it. I want, when you come to me and talk to me about my game, I want you to surprise me. I want to be surprised. Believe me, I know a hell of a lot about my game, right? Like, I know it pretty inside and out. If you can come to me and say something about it and surprise me, you're my best friend.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of why you're making games, is to try to surprise yourself and find out things about what you can make and who you are. That's one of the sequence break. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when you said about knowing when to stop, it's when you stop surprising yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, good one. I'm going to use that for my own work, so I can know when to stop. Thank you. Thank you. One of the things I love about video games is sequence breaking. One of the things I love about sequence breaking is it both encourages people to try to hack the world around them and to look for things that maybe weren't intended. If you can use that lesson in your own life and kind of break the rules in ways that are going to work for you, it's maybe the only way to be a true innovator is to try to break the rules. And it also just teaches you to analyze and think deeply and to get to know things beyond the surface level. And to get to know yourself beyond the surface level, maybe. Deep, deep, deep. Man, I gotta stop being so deep. It's gonna bore people. Not that it's genuinely deep, but
I'd like to not have a deep conversation about emotions or anything here. I'd really appreciate it if you would, keep that out of the conversation.
Now you tell me. For like an hour and 15 minutes.
I've been holding it back. It's been balling up inside of me. The last hour and a half. I've been hanging on to it.
I'm sure a lot of people just pressed stop on the recording a while ago because of my talk. Rats. Anyway, Super Pixel Chris asks a question. I showed the Stanley Parable to my non-gamer ex, and she loved it so much she started playing other games.
They're exes now?
Yeah, but that, sounds like he's still connected to her on some level. That's nice. What do you think of the Stanley Parable being an entry point for non-gamers?
If it happens, that is the coolest thing ever, right? I've definitely had people who were like not gamers who played it and really enjoyed it. I think because they don't call it a game all the time. They're like, I loved it, but it doesn't feel like what I conceive as being a game, right? So it would be cool if people played it and went, there are other games that can still say something like this. Just because it's not a traditional game doesn't mean that games can't do some, more traditional games can't do similar things. I guess the important part is that it creates a conversation. Because that person, she is not going to know what other games might be available. Like, she could probably Google, experimental games or whatever, but even then there's a kind of filter that has to happen. I think that by talking to someone, by talking to Super Pixel Chris, and saying, are there other games like this? And he could say, oh yeah, try this and this and this and this. And then if she likes this one but not that one, and then say, well, I like this, maybe is there anything more this direction? And then maybe conversations with other people too, and get other people's perspectives, because maybe Super Pixel Chris didn't like, I don't know, Journey or something, but she would love Journey. Anyway, the point is just starting a conversation and saying what games are really special, what has really moved you or made you feel something that was really touching to you, and then just being open to trying those things out. If it creates the openness to that conversation, that's the important thing. Not like if you play Stanley, it's like on a Amazon recommendations. Like if you played Stanley Parable, you also like It's not that simple. There's many things that you might resonate with, and hopefully just by beginning to talk about it, but if you're not already familiar with the video game world, just by talking and getting to know someone, or having that conversation with someone, I would love it if it inspired that.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, I could talk about it, but we've got a question from Vlambeer, and I don't want to cut them off because they're very important men. Like, every guest on this show also knows Vlambeer. I feel like they should just have their own show.
What can I say? Rami's a good-looking man. I just couldn't. I couldn't stay away.
I've heard he's super tall too. He's like 9 feet tall.
He could be he is not someone I'd want to engage in a hostile manner.
That's part of his Johann Sebastian Joust skills. He's just gigantic. So I'm told. Well, he asks anyway, Davey, why do you never call in the morning? Also, which narrator games do you like and why? So you never call him in the morning?
Oh, jeez, he had to air it here. He had to bring it onto the internet. The last place that I want to talk about personal issues.
I'm sorry about that.
Well, you know what? It's okay. I think now's the time to be open with him. If not now, then when? If I'm not gonna tell him how I feel here on Holmes, then what better opportunity is there?
That's true. The time is now for you and Vlambeer to change your relationship status.
The time is now. Hey guys, you know, I'm ready to move on. Emotionally, not sexually. We were good in that. We're still good in that department. And it's beginning the letting go process of me.
Sure.
Of me being emotionally invested enough to call you in the mornings.
Wow, that is so. I'm half believing you now. That was so convincing. And are there games with narrators that you also enjoyed?
With narrators,
Is there any? Did you?
I'm seeing narrative games.
My bad. Sorry. Yeah, narrative games in general. You mentioned Metal Gear, but were there others that?
Yeah, I mean, Metal Gear was really influential to me. All of the Metal Gear games. There's a whole spectrum. Like I don't want one particular kind of narrative. You know, I want to be like surprised at how a narrative is presented. So like last year, I was really surprised by Analog, A Hate Story by Christine Love. I think it's been on the show.
Yeah,
yeah, I like that. See, what's funny about that is it's a very like it looks on its surface like it's a super narrative, like text game, and then it becomes something very very different. And I like that it really surprised me. Heart Life, like I said, it's got like a plot, but it's really about the narrative of having to take care of yourself. It's about the story of personally overcoming a hardship that is presented to you externally and learning how you deal with that kind of thing.
Nothing else comes to mind.
I mean, like games. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like I tend to like games like that don't quite fit a traditional narrative because there's a game like BioShock was really influential to me, but I don't think of myself as I don't think of it like BioShock's plot twist or whatever that was influential or anything. Because there was like plot twists, is not even if it's really well done. And like I really loved Portal and Portal 2, which had lots of narrative, and it was really fantastic narrative, and it was really well written. But the narrative on its surface. I would rather play something that told me a narrative where I didn't expect a narrative coming. Basically, I didn't expect. Like a wonderful example of when that happened to me last year was with Fez.
Oh right.
I was not expecting Fez to have like a story, and no one talks about the story in Fez. I've seen a whole bunch of conversation online about Fez. I've talked with people about it. No one has ever once had a conversation about the story of Fez. And what's so beautiful about it is that it's almost invisible, right? The story behind Fez is wonderful. And it's great because you would miss it if you blinked, right? like that's the kind of experience with a narrative that I really appreciate, where I would have looked at it on the surface and said, oh, the story is about this, and then it comes at me, and I come away from it going, oh my god, the story was about this other thing over here. Same with, like, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine about do you know English Country Tune?
No, what's that?
By Increpair, Stephen Lavelle, who makes a whole bunch of like freeware puzzle games and kind of explorative narration games. And English Country Tune is as hardcore, straight-laced a puzzle game as you would possibly imagine, and yet I totally believe there's a narrative. And I was talking with a friend of mine, and he had another interpretation of the narrative, and it was totally different than mine, right? And there was room inside of that for a narrative in a way that I would not have predicted. So I guess those are some examples. It's really hard for me to say, like, oh, it's totally this, because I like the ones that surprise me and still leave me unsure. Like, what was the narrative? What was the story there? I like, as opposed to, like I said, Portal, which has an amazingly well done story, but I had no question what the story was. I like games that, even looking back on it now, I'm like, wait, was there a narrative? Yeah, oh, there was. Oh my god, like with a game like English Country Tune or Fez. Those are the narratives that have really captured me lately.
Sounds like it's not just the narrative and what it's the explicit intention in terms of what you're going to get from it, but the way it's told and what it does to you while it's telling you the story or not telling you while you're looking to find it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
It's a tricky definition. It's a tricky definition. I don't want to claim to have like explained, to have like said this is what narrative is, because I like continuing to be surprised. That's why it's so interesting that the IGF had a narrative category this year, and I hope that leads to more like conversation about what a narrative is, because in the finalists. 3 of the finalists from narrative were also in Nuovo category out of the 5, and so it says, okay, maybe we don't totally understand yet what kinds of narratives we're recognizing here. So I would like if we said we don't know what a narrative is yet. It could be something like in English Country Tune or whatever. Not that it would does not explicitly have a narrative, but I would like if the definition remained open. Actually, talking about the IGF made me remember 30 Flights of Loving and its prequel Gravity Bone, which, I mean, Gravity Bone is one of my favorite games in the last few years. It surprised me on a level that is very rare in games, in my experience with games. It shocked me. I did not see it coming. I did not expect it. It just swept my feet out from under me, and 30 Flights continued the excellent use of those ideas. Again, it was like I didn't see the narrative coming, and those games do have a very explicit narrative. They do have a very, like, this is kind of what the story is about, and yet, even then, there was still something that felt like it was living below the surface that I hadn't anticipated. Again, it's what we were saying before. The mechanic points at something else rather than being for the sake of the mechanic. And it can be like explicitly a story game or explicitly just a puzzle game. But if it points toward an interesting narrative, I'm going to call it a narrative game.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. If that's what you can only tell people what it did for you and how you felt it did it. That's our best use of language, so might as well use the word you think does that. One thing that I've noticed keeps coming up in conversation is that it sounds like you love to be surprised. Have you always been that kind of person, or was there a time when you were kind of, you reached an apex of what you could do with just being handed things to you that were what they seemed to be on the surface, and then you were suddenly like, no, I'm sick of this. I want to be surprised by things, and that's kind of what you're hungry for now?
Well, I don't know. It's like I said before, when I made the Stanley Parable originally, I thought that I knew who I was back then, and I wasn't that guy anymore. And then it turns out actually people still do resonate with it. So maybe I'd like to say, oh no, I never used to do this, but I think maybe in a way I always did, and I've been learning to express it better. You know, like I've been realizing more and more that, like, I just have more and more examples of when something that was really scary was presented to me, and I fucking saw through it, and I stepped into it and explored it and let it just wrap around me. That almost every time it became something really, really positive. And I have more life experience and examples of that happening, to where I know now that next time something scary comes up, keep on going through it, I'm probably going to see something there. I probably always know that on some level, but I'm learning it more and more all the time.
Huh. Maybe I should ask what your favorite Batman movie is.
Ooh.
That's a way to get to know a person.
That's not a good reference point. I'm not a Batman guy.
You don't like Batman?
Oh no,
That's amazing. That in itself, I didn't think there were any 24-year-old men on the planet that didn't like Batman.
Well, Batman's a great. I love the fact that he is a superhero that is based in like radical self-reliance.
Absolutely, but in terms of Batman movies, you couldn't say you have a favorite. It sounds like.
I really liked The Dark Knight. I know that's kind of an easy answer, but I thought it was a really tremendous exploration of some really fascinating ideas. Very well executed. Yeah.
Yeah, that says to me that you're not the kind of guy who's looking to be seen as different for the sake of it. You're willing to just come out and say that was the best one, the most interesting idea.
I haven't seen all of them, right? Like, I don't know, maybe the George Clooney, you know, maybe I'll see that and I'll be like, fuck The Dark Knight, but I quite liked The Dark Knight. I think the Joker is a pretty fantastic villain. He has one of the best motives of like any villain ever, which is no motive. Perfect.
Right. I can really. There's a part of us that's like that, and I think a lot of people relate with it. Sadly, on the internet, sometimes people relate with it too much, and they just want to be jokers of Twitter and just set fire to other people's lives by farting on them virtually. Virtual fart jokers. That's the internet for you. 3 minutes! We've got to get wrapping up. Jeez, look at the time! This is one of the first times I went way over time and just totally forgot. I could talk to you all day, Davey. I do not get sick of talking to you, sir.
The internet is very valuable. The internet's time is very valuable. You know that.
It's true, and I'm wasting it.
The internet does not waste time, all right, John? We have...
It's true. There's this weird culture now where if you do a video, which I've done on the internet, 10 seconds of it are boring, you will get a strong, heated complaint about those sucky 10 seconds. Video. But anyway, that was 4 minutes ago. We were supposed to wrap up. I'm sorry.
4 minutes. 4 minutes isn't enough.
And we didn't talk about Indiecade Annex. You have that thing, an outdoor...
Yeah, I'll plug that real quick. If you live in Austin, we're doing an Indiecade-sponsored multiplayer outdoor night games, like Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time. February 8th, there's, like, check the website. There's a Facebook thing for it. Yeah, it's going to be
I totally wish I could hear that. It sounds awesome. Samurai Gun will be there, I heard.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. If you haven't played Samurai Gun, it's super awesome. Anyway, doing my little plug thing. Check me out. Whatever.
They should check you out on Galactic Cafe.
Galactic Cafe, yeah.
That's right. And on Twitter, you're...
Hello Cake Bread. That's a weird thing, but yeah, Cake Bread was taken. So.
And when do you think the Stanley Parable HD is coming out?
It's coming out when it's coming out. I've put too much time and energy into setting like little deadlines and whatever, and I've never liked. I don't want to do that anymore. So,
but are you guessing this year? Guessing?
I think it's going to be this year.
Yeah.
I think it'll be, sometime this year. And if it is, then fantastic, right? And if it's next year, then it's next year.
Makes sense to me. And on hopefully every console ever. That's why I hope it comes out.
Yeah, no, we're porting it to the Jaguar, actually.
Oh, poor Jaguar. Butt of so many jokes. Atari. They just died recently, Atari. They're out of business.
Yeah.
Too soon. Too soon, Davey Wreden.
Well, I'm like that, right? I just...
So that's the end of the show, sadly. You can tell I want to keep going, but I have to stop myself.
I know. This is wonderful. I love chatting. I love, just kicking around some good ideas and some bad ideas, too. There were some bad ideas in there somewhere.
Some terrible ideas.
We both contributed a little bit to that.
Yeah, I don't think your ideas were great. My Michael McDonald idea is shameful. I feel ashamed.
No, dude, own it, right? Don't be afraid to like what you like.
That's right. We'll end on that note. And you can... I'm sorry.
The guitar is in your head. And the guitar is in your head.
That's right. I'm Jammer Lammy. Deepest game of all time. You can follow me. I'm at Tron Knox on Twitter. You can listen to the show on iTunes, Holmes ? Type that in. And you can watch reruns on Dtoid TV on YouTube. And I think that's everything. Okay. I'm going to go.
Bye, Internet.
Everybody. Bye. Thanks again, Davey. Bye.
Davey, walk through the door to your left.